Hey everybody. Monday evening, that means we've got Richard Reeds here. And we finished my novel, The Solution of Peace, last week. And so it was time to pick a new novel, and I debated it a long time. I didn't decide actually until today which one I was going to read next. I debated between Volition Agent, Broken Trust, and Illusion of Victory. Uh, I wanted to do Illusion of Victory because that's the next one after Dissolution of Peace in terms of book series. I wanted to do Volition Agent because it's the next one after um, what that I wrote, and then I thought about doing Broken Trust just because I enjoy that story so much. And in the end, I decided to go with Volition Agent, which is what we're going to read today. Now, so here's the cover of Volition Agent. Well, that's really shiny on there. One of the cool things about this cover is that I was really struggling for the cover for this book. I didn't know what I wanted, and I don't design my own covers. I just don't. And I couldn't decide. I kept looking at different artwork and different types of things, and I just couldn't find something that spoke to me for the main character in the book. But I really knew that for this novel, I wanted the main character on the cover of the book. And so I kind of just put out a feeler to on Facebook with some friends, just kind of going, "Oh, this is difficult for me to find a cover." So then a friend of mine, her name is Kristen Irons, and she does photography. And she says, "Well, what are you looking for on the cover?" And I kind of explained it to her and what I was looking for. And she says, "Well, I know a model who would be willing to take some photos. Maybe we could take some photos, and maybe if they agree, they could be on the cover of your book." And I was really, really flabbergasted. I was like, "Oh, yeah, that would be amazing." And so they went out and they took a bunch of beautiful pictures, beautiful, beautiful pictures. And she did make up a cover for me that was the original cover. And then I took it later on to a graphic artist, and they got all the releases, and then they revamped it to the cover we have today. But that's actually a person that I kind of know. I don't know, I've never met them in person, but know them from the internet world. And it's the first time anyone ever cosplayed as any of my characters. It's probably the only time anyone's ever cosplayed as one of my characters. So I thought it was just really cool. I was really excited about it. And so then I took it to ATRT Art, and they did up the cover, and I love it. I love it. And there's a little thing in there. I don't know how well you guys can see that here. I don't know if that's going to focus very clear. But you'll see right here on the side, there's a little something there. And it says data KIP. So I put that in there. That's a little nod to Kristen Irons photography. And it says model JA, which is Joy Anna, who is the model. And then it says run ATRT, which was the graphic artist that put the cover together. And then the last thing says load RFIV, which is obviously my initials. And then it says severed at the end, and you'll understand that as we get a little farther in the book. So anyway, this is Volition Agent. The tagline is they thought they were in control. So they thought they were in control. And I'll read kind of the back cover of it, and then we'll dive right in. I actually read physical books. This is actually, I was debating because I was going to read my grandmother's copies of all my books, but the copy that my grandmother had was of the original cover, and I really wanted to show off the new cover. So I didn't. So I went up and I actually found a box in my bedroom from when I go to conventions of all of my paperbacks, a bunch of copies, and I happen to have only two left of Volition Agent. So it must sell more when I go to conventions than my other novels do. And so let's read the back cover and then we'll jump right in. So again, the tagline: they thought they were in control. Lexia is an ordinary person with no special training or unique skills. That is, until Lance, her handler, jumps in and takes full control of her every action. With Lance, Lexia is one of the deadliest government agents. Without him, she's a useless civilian who is completely disposable. When one of her missions goes wrong quickly, Lexia finds herself scrambling to escape capture. The agency she works for has disavowed any knowledge of her existence and leaves her for local authorities to arrest her on murder charges. Lexia must fend for herself if she wants to survive. With no clues, minimal training, and an unlikely ally, she searches for answers. The agency wants her dead. Can Lexia stop them, or are they still in control? And there we go. So without further ado, let's jump right on in. As a reminder, I upload all of these to YouTube, so if you jump in late, miss it, then you can catch it there. Get caught up. I dedicated this one for my Aunt Phyllis. She passed away around the time this was done. This was first printing July 2013. And so I just put in here, for Aunt Phyllis Halleck, every time I write a book, I'm reminded of you. I miss you always. Also customary at the beginning of every one of my books, I put a quote. So this is this book's quote. We must believe in free will. We have no choice. Isaac Singer. Chapter 1. The alley had a smell of fresh rain mixed with the odor of a week's worth of trash. This late at night, the traffic was light. Occasionally a car could be heard driving down the wet roads. Alexia Santarelli leaned against the brick wall of the 6-story apartment building, looking over her fingernails. She didn't understand the need to start her assignments in such filthy places, but her handler chose the locations. It was out of her control. Alexia glanced at her watch. He was late, but that wasn't really a surprise. She pushed off the wall and walked over to the side door of the building. Knowing how her handler, Lance, didn't like to waste time approaching a target, it was likely in this building. It wouldn't hurt to find a subtle way in. She reached out to test the handle. Suddenly, her arm jerked back. What do you think you're doing? You know you're supposed to wait for me, Lance's voice spoke inside her mind. And you're supposed to let me know when you jump in, Lexia whispered. We don't need any fingerprints left on this assignment. Did you bring your gloves? Of course. Lexia realized Lance had taken full control of her movements, and her hand went to the Glock in her shoulder holster. Damn it, Lance. You think I can't remember my own gun? I'm just making sure. Lexia began slipping on her gloves. What is today's assignment? We've got an informer. An agency employee is believed to be passing on information about who we are watching. Well, let's get started. Lexia opened the alley door. She made her way down the dimly lit hall. Lance must have overridden the building's automatic lighting. As she approached the last door on the right, a click could be heard and the door unlocked. Lexia opened the door and looked up the flight of stairs. Somehow, she knew it was 3 floors up. Third floor, Lance's voice echoed. I know. Lexia started up the stairs, keeping a brisk pace. What's the hurry? She's getting ready to leave. Lexia pushed through the 3rd floor door. She walked down the hall, looking at each door number as it passed. The creak of the door opening could be heard around the corner. Lexia peeked around and saw a short, blonde woman near the door. The blonde looked the other way first. Lexia ducked behind the wall. Easing around the corner, Lexia saw the blonde was turning to lock the door. Lexia moved down the hall at a pace just short of running. She took hold of the blonde and crashed through the door. A scream echoed in the room as the blonde fell to the floor. Lexia shoved the door shut. The woman scrambled backwards in an attempt to get away. Lexia picked her up and tossed her on the couch. Take it easy, Lexia said to Lance. Who are you? The blonde cowered behind into the couch. Agent Santarelli, Lexia spoke. Lance's words. They didn't give names. What was Lance thinking? What are you doing? I know what I'm doing. Let me do the talking now, Lance said. I was just going out to get some things. The blonde moved closer to the edge of her seat. Don't feed me bullshit, Jamie. So that was her name. Lexia decided to follow protocol and let Lance talk. We work for the same people, and our boss knows what you've been up to. I don't understand. I'm just a secretary. Lexia picked Jamie up by her shirt and pressed her against the wall. Lexia put her face close to Jamie. Who have you told, and what have you told them? Tears began rolling down Jamie's face. She sniffed once but said nothing. Lexia slammed her against the wall again. I asked a question. What has gotten into Lance? In the past year working with him, she never saw him get so angry with someone who was clearly so defenseless. Worst of all, he was using her to do it. Calm down, Lexia said in her own words. I am calm, Lance said in her head. I don't know what you want, Jamie said in between sobs. Lexia heard a door open down the hall. Pulling her gun, she spun in the direction of the sound. It was pointed at a man with a golf club held up high. Lexia felt her finger pull the trigger. In a surreal scene, she saw the man fall to the floor, never hearing the shot. God damn it, Lance, Lexia yelled, forgetting protocol. Suddenly, Lexia was knocked to the ground by Jamie. Her head smacked the floor. Dizziness and stars filled her vision. As her head cleared, Jamie was straddling over. She delivered a hit to Lexia's stomach. Jamie wasn't strong, but it got Lexia's attention. Lexia threw her off. Jamie rolled over into the wall. Lexia heard a baby crying. A baby? But Lance had already had Lexia diving on Jamie again. Lexia realized they were struggling for her gun. Jamie was no physical match for Lexia, but she refused to let go of the gun. Another shot rang out. A bullet whizzed past her head. Jamie was going to kill her. Lexia was finally able to twist Jamie's arm so the gun was pointed at Jamie's chest. There was a crack. Jamie screamed. Suddenly there was no resistance from Jamie. Lexia had broken her elbow. Cries came echoing down the hallway. The baby only got louder as time passed. Someone must have called the police. Come on, Lance, we gotta go, she thought. Lance couldn't hear her thoughts, and he didn't release Jamie. The gun, still in the woman's grip, pointed at Jamie's own chest. Tears covered Jamie's swollen face. The faintest signs of bruising were starting to show. She looked into Lexia's eyes. Then she glanced down at the room where the cries came from. Please don't kill me, Jamie pleaded. You're not going to kill me, are you? I don't know, sweetie. I don't know, Lexia said for herself. Lexia forced Jamie's finger down on the trigger. Lexia closed her eyes as the gun fired. She pulled the gun from Jamie's hands and holstered it. God damn you, Lexia yelled. She's a mom. Don't you hear that, baby? She was a traitor and an enemy of the state, Lance said. We need to get out of here. The cops are on the way. Lexia burst through the door into the alley, still cursing at Lance. She shut up when she saw the red and blue lights reflecting off the building. Lexia peeked around the corner slowly before pulling her head back. Please tell me that isn't your car parked out front, Lance said in her mind. Lexia just nodded. She ran down the back alley. 2 cops came around the corner of the building. You stop, one ordered. Lexia turned around and ran the other way. 2 more came around the front of the building. Lexia looked back and forth at the cops. She took a few steps back and then ran her way through the door of the neighboring building. She sprinted down the hall, ignoring the cops yelling at her. She hit the end of the building and came to a door that was locked. Hurry up, Lance. I didn't exactly expect you to park right in front of the target. It wasn't an assassination assignment either, Lexia said as the door clicked open. She sprinted up the stairs. She attacked us. We disarmed her, Lexia yelled. Listen, I handled it within regulations. Regulations? She was a mom. That baby has no parents now, thanks to your trigger finger. Can we focus on getting out of here? They crashed through the last door, and onto the roof. Lexia looked around quickly. Well, how are we getting out of this? The building was shorter than the other 2 next to it. 3 floors, if Lexia counted the flights correctly. This building was twice as wide, too. She started to run to the back of the building. She could hear the cops coming up the last set of stairs. She looked over the edge and backed up to the next street over. From down there, she'd have a better chance of escaping. No way, she said. It's a survivable jump. It's my broken bones. You want to get arrested? Lance's voice rang through her head. You know the rules. The agency would disavow her in an instant. She looked back at the door. She took 3 steps back. I don't really have a choice. Lexia ran forward and jumped from the building. She opened her eyes for the landing just in time to see a cop car coming around the corner, hitting the ground. Hitting the ground, Lexia rolled over several times. The cop car slammed on the brakes and swerved as she tumbled in front of it. The car hit a lamp post. She jumped up in an instant and took off running down the street. Lexia heard more sirens in the distance, each getting closer. Glancing over her shoulder, she saw another cop car around the corner. The sound of the car behind her was close. She thought she could feel the heat of the engine as it bared down on her. At the last moment, she cut down another alley. Alexia heard the car screech to a halt. She looked over her shoulder to see another cop chasing her. She rounded a corner right into another dead end. "Did you even look at any of the maps?" Alexia's voice snipped at Lance. "Shut up." The voice chilled her spine. The cop came around the corner, his gun pointed at Lexia. "Hands up," the cop ordered. Lexia was glad Lance listened. "Turn around slowly in a complete circle." Lexia kept turning and turning until she spun one full time around and now faced away from the cop. "Stop. Down on your knees." Lexia followed the instructions and put her arms on the back of her head. She waited nervously as she heard the cop approaching behind her. He was slow and methodical in his steps. She prayed Lance had a plan out of this. She felt the handcuffs ratchet onto her right wrist. Just as the cop began to pull her wrist, Lexia dropped forward and pulled hard, toppling them both over. Her wrist screamed in pain as she grappled with the officer. They rolled over and she managed to get a solid punch to his face. He shoved her off him. Lexia began to topple backwards but managed to catch her balance and lunge forward, knocking the cop over again, grappling with his arms until she finally pinned him down to the ground. She pulled his arm behind his back. She used her other hand to flip open the cop's cuff case. She used his cuffs to restrain him. She pulled him up and sat him against the wall. "I think he's back here," Lexia heard a voice yell out. "I'm here," the cop yelled. Lexia knocked him out in one swift blow. "Was that necessary?" Lexia asked. "The fire escape," Lance said. Lexia looked up. She could run. She took a run, jumped up on a dumpster, kicked off the wall, and barely caught the bottom of the fire escape ladder. She pulled herself up quickly to the first landing. She checked the windows. Locked. "Up there on the escape," a cop called out. She scaled the next ladder and found an open window. Slipping inside, Lexia quickly made her way for the door. She flung it open and ran for the elevator. Hitting the button 20 times, the elevator opened. Lexia pressed the basement button inside and leaned against the back wall, trying to catch her breath. "Now what?" she said between gasps. "Basement parking garage." Lance's voice didn't sound very reassuring in her head. "They're bound to have the building surrounded." The elevator opened. A strong odor of urine entered. Lexia peeked out cautiously. She didn't see anyone among the dimly lit rows of parked cars. She ran until she spotted a sedan and walked around it. Taking the handcuffs still hanging from her bleeding wrist, Lexia swung hard at the glass. First time, nothing happened, just a loud noise that surely told everyone she was down here. The second time, the window shattered. "Well, they know we're here now," Lexia said as she slid into the car. "I don't know how to hotwire a car." "I do, so just let me work," Lance said. Lexia just let Lance have complete control as he went to work. The sound of the orphan child's cries rang in her mind. She couldn't stop thinking about it, and couldn't stop thinking about what she'd done. She was sure this wasn't the first child whose parents she had killed, but she just couldn't get the crying out of her head. The engine roared to life. She sat up and put the car in reverse and pulled out slowly. As Lexia drove up the ramp, she kept her speed within reason. She was glad Lance didn't want to draw attention. She came out to the street and pulled away slowly. She was careful not to look in the direction of a cop who was just coming out into the alley. 2 more cop cars screamed past her as she turned on the next street. She gunned it. "Can you get to the safe house from here?" Lance asked. "I hope so. Don't worry. Go home until I can get things in place with the agency." "Crap. They got my car out front. It wouldn't be long until they figure out who I am. How could I have been so stupid to park nearby?" "Lexia, you understand?" Lance's voice interrupted her thoughts. "Go to the safe house. Stay there. I'm jumping out." All right. Chapter 3. I hope you guys are enjoying so far. As we get into Chapter 3, starting off with a bang here, literally. Lance unhooked from the control chair, barely waiting for the neural interface helmet to come off. He stood up and paced around the room. 5 other handlers were in there, all connected to a similar set he was. A large, comfortable chair, the neural helmet, a large wraparound screen that showed them what they were doing. Lance rarely used the screen anymore. Once the helmet was attached, he could see everything Lexia saw. The room they were in was dark, the windows heavily tinted to eliminate any sensory distractions. No scents or fragrances could be smelled. They were not allowed to wear any cologne or perfumes. Sounds were muted. Even the click of the keyboard sounded somewhat muffled. It was important that the brain didn't receive too many conflicting signals from the real world while they were jumped in with the agents. Lance stopped pacing. Damn, this is bad. Who the hell was that guy in the room anyway? Why hadn't Intel picked up that she was with someone? He couldn't worry about that now. He had to help Lexia. The police had a lot of information on her. He needed to counter it. Rough mission, Lance? Another handler said. You could say that. Lance sat back down at his system and pulled out a keyboard. He could have used the touch interface, but he preferred the manual keys. The first thing Lance did was modify the record of Lexia's car. He was mad at Lexia for parking right in front of the building. Next time, he wouldn't have her start her mission right next to the target. Lance pulled up some initial records from the police dispatch center. Times like this made him appreciate the agency hackers. He found some initial records for the man in the apartment and used the information to change Lexia's car to his car. Next, he needed to make sure there was no video evidence of Lexia or her escape. The police dashcam footage would be the hardest to get. They rarely uploaded that to their servers in real time in this city. Lance found a few area surveillance cameras. 2 just had blurry images of Lexia running by. Even the agency equipment couldn't ID her. There was one for a local shop that had a clear image of her face. The security protocols on the camera were very weak, so he simply shut the camera down and erased the footage for the last 8 hours. They'd think the camera was broken. Now it was time to get his hands on the video footage from the police cars. He'd probably have to get a tech over there, but this was something likely to make the news fast. Lance tried to figure out his best options. He tried to see if any techs were in the area of the incident. The nearest was 2 hours south of the location and on another job. Lance sent an emergency message to a supervisor requesting assistance in getting a tech down there. Denied. That was the only message he got back. Lance slammed his fists on the desk. That cop car was right on top of her. They had to have some good video of her. He started to work on trying to stall the media. It'd be hard to plan a story, but perhaps he could send some anonymous statements. He began clicking away. Maybe he could get the video when it arrived at the news desk. Lance went over the mission in his head as he worked. Intel had told them that Jamie was alone and would remain alone. How could Jamie sneak someone into an apartment with her without Intel teams knowing? There was something about Jamie than he was told. There was no way a secretary could get the drop on him, even with his surprise at seeing the other person in the apartment. And no one told him there was a baby. There were 2 options. He was set up, or Intel messed up. Intel had messed up plenty of times in the past. Lance jumped when someone tapped at his chair. He turned around to see another handler looking at him. They're looking for you in debriefing. Thanks. Lance stood up. Lance walked out of the dim room. The artificial lights in the hall were blinding in contrast. He walked past a few rows of doors, all leading to other handlers' rooms. Before getting to the debriefing room at the end of the hall, it was unusual for them to call him in so early. The room had a massive cherry wood table in the middle. Tablet-style screens were embedded in front of every seat. Unlike the control rooms, the windows were allowed for a beautiful view of the night skyline. The far end of the room had large monitors. He saw a supervisor sitting at the table. The usual group of people were on the monitors in front of him. Lance sat next to his supervisor like he usually did. "What happened out there, Lance?" the man who always ran these meetings said. "Two dead bodies and police involvement on an apprehension mission isn't good." I was instructed that anyone with Jamie was to be killed," Lance said. "That was his orders, though surprise was the real reason he killed that man." "You regularly deviate from these orders." Lance did regularly avoid killing people when he didn't have to do it. They had him there. He had a golf club, and I couldn't very well fight him while keeping Jamie around. The group nodded. They were okay with that answer. "How did Jamie get the better of you?" "She had a bit of surprise on her side. I hadn't expected a secretary to take the moment I was distracted to attack," Lance said. They nodded again. "We've seen the jump in recordings." The man looked down at something. "Your agent seems to argue with you a lot. Too much, even." They had his jump records already? They either snatched them the moment he jumped out, or, more likely, they'd watched the mission live. If this apprehension mission was so important that the heads of the region were watching live, why had Intel botched this thing up so bad? "She expected an apprehension mission. She didn't expect me to shoot two people dead. And there was nothing in the mission profile about a baby," Lance said. "All things a civilian can't be expected to cope with." "Lexia is an agent. Only when I control her," Lance said. "So what do you think is to blame for this?" "Bad intel," Lance lied. "Clearly they didn't know enough. How did they miss a baby and a full-grown man in the apartment?" None of the men nodded this time. They had to go along with that, but Lance knew there was something else going on. "You used your agent's name. Why?" "I thought from the start Jamie might be something more than an agency secretary," Lance thought. Instead he said, "That was a mistake." They nodded again. The only one who remained still was the regional director, Maria. She knew Lance didn't like her, and she rarely attended his briefings. Lance was actually very disgusted by her. The things that woman had done to him and his friends made him sick. The fact that she was here made things even more fishy. "Go check on Lexia," the man said. "We know she's in the safe house now, but just make sure she's holding up. We'll get in touch with you after we debrief her." Lance nodded and stood up. He wasn't looking forward to talking with Lexia. This mission clearly upset her. It upset him. There was something more going on here, and he could bet Maria had something to do with it. "Hello, Hoku. How are you? Welcome in. You missed the start. We started off with a big bang. We're going into chapter 4 here. But welcome in. I'm glad you're here. Of course, you know how to catch up if you want to hear what you missed. But welcome, welcome. Glad to have you. Chapter 4, 444. Chapter 4. All right. When Lexia had arrived at the safe house, they were quick to get everything she had in her possession. There was a whirlwind of activity in which countless agency employees took the car, her gun, the gloves she was wearing, and her glasses. No one said a word to her. She knew the procedures, and none of these employees were allowed to know what she had done anyway. Their job was to cleanse her of potential evidence. They showed her to a small room to give her the privacy she needed to change her clothes. They took her shoes and socks and walked out. She looked down at her wrist, now bandaged from the cuts the handcuffs had made. Some dried up blood was still on her arm. She thought she might have broken her wrist, but there was still no swelling. She pulled off her shirt and tossed it into a disposable bin. She did the same with her bra. She was disappointed about that. It was one of her favorites. As she removed her pants, she heard a crinkling sound from the pockets. She was sure she had already turned everything in. She reached into the back pocket and found a small piece of paper. It was crumpled up good and a bit damp to the touch from her sweat. She carefully unfolded it. The text was sloppy and hard to read. "Lexia, you're next. Be careful." She pretended to blow her nose in the paper and walked over to the disposable bin. She sat down on the bed and slipped off her panties while tucking the note under the mattress. She hit the button indicating she was ready for them to take the disposable bin and went to the showers. She tried to figure out who could have slipped her the note. It had to have been one of the agency cleansers. They were the only ones to have close contact with her and the opportunity to touch her without raising suspicion. Are they trying to scare me? Or do they know something about what's going on outside? Something with that woman's murder? What was her name? Jamie. Lexia didn't even know the man's name. She spread the shampoo over her hair. She rubbed the back of her neck. She felt a little bump there. It was small. It was small. No one would know it was there if they weren't looking for it. Underneath, attached to her nervous system, was the device Lance used to control her. The device Lance had used to murder those people. She was just the weapon. She shook her head. This wasn't the first time she'd killed for the agency. In fact, most of her assignments resulted in some death, but usually the case was clearer to her. It was required she kill, either to prevent her own death or to prevent the death of countless others. All Alexia knew about this Jamie was she was suspected of selling secrets. Lance had been her handler since she joined the agency. She'd never steered her wrong before. She had to trust him. This shouldn't bother her. There had to be more to the situation than they knew. Oh, that baby. I'm jumping in, Lance's voice in her head made her slip. I'm still in cleansing. Alexia turned off the water. I'm not taking full control. Just wanted to make sure you got to the safe house okay. Alexia turned to look in the mirror. Her toned body glistened with the water. Her brown hair looked black and was slicked to her body. She took a towel and covered herself. I thought you weren't taking control. She was able to move her head again. She was able to move her head again. She continued to dry herself. Well, I'm here, she said. It's bothering you, isn't it? Lance said. It was an apprehension assignment. We were supposed to get information and bring her in. Alexia began to dry her hair. I had orders that if she resisted, I was to kill her. You have no idea the risk she poses to the agency. Posed, Lance. She's dead. Alexia walked out of the bathroom. New clothes had been laid out for her. New shoes and a new wallet were also sitting on the table next to the bed. I know. And the man? Who was he to die? Alexia. Who was he? I don't know. Police have a name, but Jamie's file says she was single. Maybe a boyfriend, Lance said. Why is this bugging you so much? You and I have killed a lot of people before. Lexia didn't want to answer Lance, but when he didn't say anything after she dressed, she spoke. I keep thinking about that baby. You're getting attached, Lance said. You can't do that, Lexia. Jamie was a traitor, and you had to deal with it. The baby will be fine. You don't know that. Lexia, stop this. You can't do this to yourself, Lance trailed off. I've never steered you wrong before. You trust me, right? Lexia did trust him. There was no doubt about that. How could she not trust him? He was her. He could control her, talk for her, and he'd got her in and out of some of the toughest spots. She wasn't sure Lance was another person as much as a part of her. This wasn't the first time she'd gone down this path of logic. She had to rationalize her unique relationship with Lance. She had never met him, but he had seen more of her than any other man. They'd spent countless hours talking, but it was difficult to rationalize that your closest friend was someone you never met. She often wondered if she was developing some kind of syndrome. Yeah, I do, she finally said. Good. Lance paused for a while. I think I got the cop situation squared away. I got the registration of your car changed to belong to that man at Jamie's. Everything I hear shows that the cops have nothing more than a 5'10" brunette. So I think we're in the clear. Good. Alexia began to put on her shoes. Yeah, well, the brass think you should lay low, just in case. Just to make sure. We'll wait and see what comes out of it in the next day or so. Alexia tossed her shoes back down and lay back on the bed. This was her room for a while. The agency had a reason for this. All right, but if you got it covered, why are you so nervous? Or why are they so nervous? The news, Lance said. They got wind of this. It's on all the local stations. If I'm not jumped in and suddenly the cops come knocking, I know. Lexi was in good shape, but when it came to tactical training, she had none. That was what Lance was for. She just needed to make sure she had the endurance to fight, run, and jump. I'm going to jump out, Lance said. Remember, it's just a precaution. Lexia just nodded. She stared at the ceiling for a while longer. Once she was sure Lance had jumped out, she sat up. She reached under the mattress and retrieved the note. She carefully slid it into her pocket and laid back down. She may as well sleep. Hey, Bob Ross, babe. Welcome in. Welcome in. Of course, you're welcome for the lurkers. In the land of lurkers. Lurking is good for reads. Love the reading. Keep it up. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I really do. I'm very nervous about reading, especially reading my own stuff on stream, but I've done a whole novel already, so maybe I'm getting a little bit better at it. Hoku can be the judge. She's been around since the beginning. Okay. What time we got here? Oh, we got time. Chapter 5. Lexia woke up fully alert when she heard the door close. She sat up quickly and looked around the room. Sitting on the dresser across from her bed was a gun and a shoulder holster. She walked over to it and slipped it on. The official equipment form was underneath it. She first wondered if this was given to her for her own protection, perhaps by the employee trying to warn her. She fished the note out of her pocket. It'd be hard to identify who wrote this. It was written so sloppily. She didn't know much about handwriting recognition, but best she could tell, the employee who drafted the form didn't write this note. She tucked the note back in her pocket and signed the equipment form. She threw on her jacket, even though she wouldn't be going anywhere, and walked out of her room. Safe house wasn't really the right term. It was really more of a miniature compound. It was rather nondescript building surrounded by decorative security fencing. The inside was boring and left as neutral looking as possible. 4 hotel-style cleansing rooms, one of which Lexia was using, were on the far end of the building. The middle was the arrival rooms. The far side had the kitchen and the conference rooms. Lexia's stomach rumbled. Breakfast would be good, but she also needed to move around. She walked through the interior receiving bay. The car she stole was gone, but that didn't surprise her. 3 employees were sitting around. They looked up and nodded at Lexia in acknowledgement, but none of them said a word. She went past them and into the door for the kitchen. She pulled out a box of cereal and some milk from the fridge. She checked the date on the milk. Who knows when the last time someone was here to drink it. It was good for another week. She poured a bowl and sat down in the corner of the room. She took several bites before messing with the bandages on her wrist. She pulled them off to find her cuts that scabbed over well. She balled up the bandages and set them on the table. Lance had seemed genuine in his assessment of the job. It just felt so wrong. She, no Lance, had killed a man 15 feet away who was only holding the golf club. A man who had stopped when he saw her gun. Then he killed a woman who seemed normal enough. Jamie didn't look like anyone she'd killed before. She wasn't an assassin or a terrorist or a mob boss. She didn't even seem like a shoplifter. Sure, she pointed a gun at Lexia, her own gun, but that threat was neutralized. An employee walked in, looked at Lexia, and walked right over to her. He left a paper on her table and walked out. The fact that no one talked around her was enough to make her crazy. Best she could tell, the handwriting didn't match her note either. She looked it over. She started a debriefing in 10 minutes. Maybe they could put this behind them, and she could get on with her life. She put her bowl in the sink and went down the hall to the conference room. She spent most of the morning and a good part of the afternoon answering questions to a panel of video screens. Each one showed the stone face of an administrator. She recognized most of them from past debriefings. but she didn't know their names. She was most shocked to see Regional Director Maria Mosley. Lexi had never seen her in a briefing before. "Why did you shoot the adult male?" the administrator handling the question said. "I didn't, sir. Lance did," Lexia said. "I see. What about the target, Jamie?" Lexia was surprised by this one. Lance said he handled the mission according to assignment. Perhaps they hadn't interviewed Lance yet. Again, Lance did that. "Do you feel the mission went as it should have?" "I don't know the missions." "Your handler doesn't tell you the nature of each assignment?" "Well, he lets me know the type of mission, but the details are rarely shared. It's safer that way," Lexia said. The panel all nodded in thought. "So again, do you think things went as they should have?" Lexia shifted in her seat. "Honestly? No." "Why not?" "Well, without knowing the details, answer the question." "This was a simple interrogation and apprehension. I'd say it went very wrong. 2 dead people and police involvement would be just about as wrong as it could go." Lexia felt relieved to get her thoughts out in the open. A twinge of guilt came over her. Lance could be in trouble for her answer. Lance trusted her to back him up. But Lance said he handled everything as best he could. One of the men pulled up some data on all the screens. It was Lexia's service file. The fact that they hadn't destroyed it yet was a good sign. She never cared much for her file photo. It was worse than her DMV photo. "You've had 34 assassination assignments in your short time with us, all of which were successful. You've killed at least 45 other people in the course of your assignments, and those are just the ones we know of. So why does this one bother you so much?" "The baby, the look in Jamie's eyes, the note in my pocket." This one went south fast. I guess I was just off guard." "Can you be used to kill again if the need arises?" "I'm here to serve the agency and my country. I'll do what my handler has me do in an effort to serve them both." They all nodded again, only Maria didn't. Maria had been silent the entire meeting. She didn't even seem to blink, through the entire meeting. She spoke up for the first time. "If you thought your handler was forcing you to do things that were unacceptable, would you say so?" How would she ever know if it was acceptable? She only knew the bare basics of each assignment. "Of course." The man who'd asked most of the questions tilted his head slightly. "Well, I think we're done here. We'll need some time to let things simmer down. Local media has got wind of this. Well, just look at this for yourself." News footage with video of police working around a building, the building she was at last night, came on screen. A headline read, "Tragic double homicide orphans 4-month-old boy." At the bottom of the screen. Suddenly, a picture of her face showed up on the screen. It looked to be taken from a security camera. "Police are looking for this woman who they say had made a daring escape from the scene. Police won't say if she is a suspect in the case, but they do want to talk to her. They have said that if you do see this woman, call 911. She could be armed and dangerous," the news reporter said. "We've obtained exclusive footage from the police." Lexia watched as a police dash cam recording. She saw herself seemingly fall from the sky and roll right in front of the police car. Then another car is seen chasing her down a street. When she looks over her shoulder, the footage stops and the news zooms in on her face. That was where they got the image. They paused the video. "So you can see we have a bit of a problem." Lexi was furious. She'd counted on Lance to take care of this, and he let her down. She slammed her fist on the table. Instantly, her sore wrist protested. Another of the men spoke. "We've already cleared out your apartment. We're going to relocate you. We just need to see if this gets any national attention. So far, it's just local stations airing this." "I thought my handler had this fixed." Alexia stood up and paced the room to calm herself. "I'm not supposed to be seen." "It's nothing to worry about. It's a bad image on local news. We've got resources to solve this. Just take some time," the lead speaker said. "Let's call this debriefing and let Agent Santalari get some rest." They all nodded. "Go relax. You'll be back to assignments before you know it." All right. Doing fine. Thank you, Hoku. I appreciate that. Lance ran on the treadmill to clear his mind. He had done everything he could to help Lexia and keep this under wraps, but the news was too fast. They had that dash cam footage before he was ready to do much with it. The agency gym was empty. The TV was on, but it was muted. The hum of the fan was relaxing. Lance found that keeping in shape kept his mind sharp. Most of the other handlers were starting to get a little flabby. They didn't see the point in training when they had fit agents to do all the work. Lance heard the door open behind him. He looked to the mirror and saw Maria walking in. He turned off the treadmill and got off. He turned to face her. Something tells me you aren't here to work out. Lance took a towel and patted his face. You'd be right. Maria waited several moments. Lance was happy to keep the silence between them. You're the best handler we have, Lance. You don't have to like me, but you had the woman I cared about killed. Lance narrowed his eyes. She was an enemy of the state, Lance. I've showed you the evidence 100 times. Lance saw the evidence, but he refused to believe it. He loved that woman. And what about my friend's daughter? Lance resisted the urge to throw something at her. All she did was refuse to go on an assignment. Maria's posture changed. It was the hardest choice of my life, but if she exposed us, it would have threatened the entire program. I had to protect my country. That's bull and you know it. Lance clenched his fists around the towel. That's enough, Maria bellowed. She quickly composed herself again. I don't give a damn how much you hate me, but this isn't about us. You're here for the agency and your country. Lance fought the urge to respond. Maria could just as easily have him arrested or killed. She wouldn't hesitate. But she saw Lance for the value to the agency, so she dealt with him, barely. The national media is running the story now, Maria said. I think we're out of options. Lance swallowed a lump in his throat. I think we can still control this. I disagree, Maria said. We're going to turn Lexia over to the police. What? Maria put up her hand. Now hold on, Lance. We'll work it out so she spends her time in a safe prison. She won't get the death penalty, and we'll remove her chip in a safe way. So Lexia takes the fall for this. Lance threw the towel on the floor. Lance, this is how this goes. This is what the Volition program is all about. We'll make sure this is as comfortable for Lexia as we can. Maria turned to walk out. She stopped at the door. And Lance, we've disabled your station. Don't do anything stupid. I know how you're a sucker for a pretty face. Maria walked out. Lance punched the mirror, shattering it. Lance swore he would show them just how stupid he really could be. There was only one person he could trust to protect Lexia, but he'd have to wait to contact him. Maria would expect that. All right. We'll go through Chapter 7. And then I think that's going to be the time we have. We'll see how it goes. Chapter 7. Wake up, Lexia. The voice was soft in her head. She stirred a bit, somehow thinking she was still dreaming. Lexia, we gotta go. She recognized Lance's voice at that time. The urgency was unmistakable. What time is it? She rolled to an upright position. The bed was clearly not comfortable. Hell, I don't know, Lance said. Get dressed. We need to go. Did they give you a gun yet? Yeah, yesterday. Lexia stood up and slipped on her pants. She looked over at her dresser. Keys sat there on the top and another form. I haven't gotten any mission profiles yet. Will you just get dressed? Lance sounded panicked. Lexia stopped after she put on her bra. She stared hard in the mirror. She found that when she really needed to get through to Lance, she needed to stare at herself in the eyes. Tell me what is going on. The police are closing in. They figured out where you went. We've got to go. SWAT teams will be arriving in moments. Lance stopped for a few moments. Damn it, do I have to take full control? Lexia snapped out of it. How the hell did they find her? In all her time, she had never heard of the cops tracking anyone down to a safe house. Lance, are you sure about this? They're suiting up a SWAT team now. In a few minutes, they will be here and this place will be surrounded. Lexia checked her new Glock to make sure it was ready. She pulled back the release and released the slide, putting a bullet into the chamber and slid it into the shoulder holster. She took the stuff from the dresser and stuffed them into her pockets. She heard the note crumple under the wallet. "I'm next," Lexia whispered. "What?" Lance said. Lexia thought about telling Lance about the note, but instead said nothing. "Let's go. I'm taking control now," Lance said. Lexia threw on her leather jacket and went for the door of her room. She peeked out carefully. No one was around. She moved slowly down the hall to the receiving area. She was surprised to find no agency employees waiting there. In fact, she hadn't heard a sound. She went down the hall. The kitchen was empty. Everything that could be taken was gone. The conference rooms were bare. How long had Lance been trying to wake her? She moved to the back door and looked out the window. A lone car sat in the parking lot. She took the keys from her pocket and looked at them. She pushed the door open and ran for the car. "They're almost here," Lance said. She jumped in the car and fumbled with the keys a moment before getting it started. She pulled out and sped around the corner. Both security gates were wide open. Two all-black vans screeched to a halt, cutting her off in the driveway. She slammed on the brakes. Men in full tactical gear jumped out and pointed assault rifles at her. She threw the car in reverse and sped backwards the way that she came. "There's no other way out, Lance," she yelled as she screeched to a halt at the back fence. She watched as the men moved in on her, screaming all types of commands at her. She slipped the car back in drive. Lance was going to get her shot. She punched the accelerator, heading down right for the now empty van parked in the right driveway. She didn't hear the gunshots, but she saw the window smashed with bullets. She sighed in relief when she realized they gave her a bullet-resistant car. The relief was short-lived when she saw they were about to hit the van. She spun the wheel at just the last moment so they caught the front of the van, slamming it out of the way. The impact made her veer to the right and slam sidelong into a parked patrol car. Her head slammed into the driver window with the impact. Her vision was blurry and she was disoriented for a moment. The sound of bullets splashing into the back of the windshield cleared her head. She punched the accelerator again. 3 police cars pulled in right behind her, sirens screaming. She took a sharp left, a little too fast, and the back end started to slide out. She was able to correct it quickly. That gave her a little distance on the cops. She made a quick right. 2 people were crossing the street. She swerved into an alley to avoid hitting them. Her passenger side mirror clipped the building, disintegrating on impact. She hit 3 trash cans before coming out on the other side of the alley. She cranked the wheel right to avoid hitting an arriving police car. "They'll have a helicopter up soon," Lance said. "We've got to lose this tail if we're ever going to have a chance." Suddenly, they cut left. She could see the red lights of the train crossing signal ahead. The arms were starting to lower. She pressed the accelerator down to the floor. She moved into the oncoming lanes, passing all the stopped cars. The crossing arms were down. She could hear the train horn blaring. They smashed right through the signal arms. She looked to her left to see the train almost within touching distance. She smashed through the other signal arm. She could hear the train screeching to a halt as she turned around to look at it. "Damn it, Lance!" Lexia felt her heart ripping out of her chest with each beat. "That should buy us enough time to ditch this car and get another one. We would have a new one waiting for us 4 miles down the road. I hope." Lance didn't sound so sure. Lexia thought about the empty safe house, the open gates, and the note in her pocket. She realized what was supposed to happen. "I was supposed to be arrested," Lexia said. "We weren't supposed to escape." Lance didn't say anything. "Lance." "They're going to let you take the fall for those murders. National News picked up the story, and they figured out it was easier to cut their losses and get a new agent." Lance sounded upset. "I'm disposable. That's the major advantage of the Volition program." Lexi didn't like it, but it was true. The main appeal of this program was the fact that they could train good agents and then let them control people like her. People who were fit but didn't have full training. And if an agent was caught or killed, well, there were a lot of physically fit people to recruit. "I couldn't let you take the fall for this murder," Lance said. "It isn't right what they're doing here." They pulled up alongside of the road. Lexi got out of the car. She walked out into the field. She could see an old barn in the distance. "You realize we're rogue agents now. The agency will use all of its resources to come after us." "No, you are a rogue agent. They don't know I'm helping you, Lance said. Lance, they can review your jump-in activity. Trust me, I'm fine. Go to the barn. There's a car there. In the glove box you'll find some directions. Follow them. Somebody can help you there. Lance paused. I'll jump in again as soon as I can. Lexia pressed a button on the keychain remote. The car on the side of the road exploded. There we go. 7 chapters. Oh, I see that hydrate. I need it. Thank you. Thank you, Hoku. So, what do you guys think? We're 7 chapters in on Volition Agent, and it is definitely goes pretty much at this pace for the whole book. You could tell from comparison, it's a much thinner book. It barely makes novel length, so it won't take us as much time to finish this one. But Lexia is one of my favorite characters, so which is not which is like all my characters. It's like saying that's one of my favorite kids when they're all your favorite kid. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed that, starting off a new novel. I definitely enjoy getting more comfortable reading to you guys and enjoying it. We're going to be doing Richard Reads at 6 p.m. at least for a little while. Just a little bit easier time frame for me to do. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to doing the next reading next Monday. If you like my writing content, you can go to, we got Wednesday Night Writes also. And I'm also thinking about starting up maybe next week some regular writing streams. So we'll see how that goes. And then we have Richard Reads next week, and we'll pick right up with Chapter 8. So thanks a lot, guys. I do have, if you like my gaming content as well, I do have a gaming stream that's going to start in about 30 minutes. I'm just going to end this stream, and I'll come back live in about 30 minutes and we're going to play some games. So thanks for hanging out, guys. You can always catch Richard Reads. These episodes, the Dissolution of Peace episodes, are all uploaded to YouTube about 24 to 48 hours after we finish here. So thanks a lot, everybody. Have a great night. I hope to see you again. Thanks.